Hey Tackle Warehouse fans, Mike Iaconelli here. I want to tell you about how I caught them at Lake Oahe, South Dakota. Amazing lake, really big, over 300,000 acres of fishable water. And the smallmouths were super tricky. But I found 2 baits and caught enough fish to have a really good top 30 finish on a lake that a lot of guys struggled on. So I'm super happy about my finish. About 40% of the fish I caught during the week came on a brand new bait that I helped Johnny Cruz, Missile Jigs, design. It's called a micro jig. Let me show you this thing. If you look at it, it's teeny, teeny, tiny. And I alternated between an 1/8 ounce and a 3/16, depending on wind. And I used just regular green pumpkin color with just a little green pumpkin mini Craw trailer on the back. And I targeted isolated boulders. So basically what I did is I'd get off the bank and I'd look with my 9 sunglasses, and anywhere I saw a bigger boulder, especially if it was out on that deeper edge, I'd fire that thing out there. And basically they were what was left of some spawning fish and a lot of fry guarders that were guarding fry around isolated boulders. And dude, they would eat this thing like candy. I'd throw it out there. About half of the time, before it ever hit the bottom, one would come up from that boulder and eat it. If it didn't on the initial fall, I would shake it around, let it sit, shake it around. If I didn't get bit past that boulder, I'd reel it in, fish the next one. Key bait for me, caught about 40% of my fish on that. And a micro jig, it's little, it's a finesse jig. It's an ultra finesse jig. And you want to throw it on a spinning rod. I used a 7.4 medium action Abu Garcia IKE Series spinning rod with a 30 size Abu Garcia, that's that brand new IKE REVO spinning reel. The line combination was real important too. I fished it with braid to a fluoroliter. I fished it on 10-pound Berkeley trilene braid with an 8-pound Berkeley trilene 100% fluorocarbon leader. I had to make long casts. Those fish were spooky. Even in that wind, that braid let me set the hook. But the real key for my bigger fish, and I caught about 60% of my fish this week on a crankbait at Lake Oahe. And this is interesting. I caught them on a DT6 by Rapala in a color called blueback herring. But here's the interesting thing. I fished this bait over 15 to 20 foot of water. Doesn't make any sense, but what was happening is the smallmouth were suspended under schools of bait. And every time I got on those deeper flats, the bait was 5 to 10 feet down. And so I decided to try throwing a crankbait through the bait and not touch the bottom. And I really burned it as fast as I could. I used a technique called speed reeling or speed cranking and burned that crankbait over those deeper flats. And I caught 60% of my fish on that blueback herring DT6. Really cool way to fish a crankbait. Ended up catching a big one each day, close to 4 pounds, all on that bait. For that one, I threw an Abu Garcia IKE Series delay rod, and I used the 7.3 medium action delay. It's composite rod, it's parabolic, it's perfect for throwing those crankbaits. And the reel, I used that brand new Abu Garcia IKE REVO. And normally I crank with a slower ratio, but because I was speed reeling, I went up to the 8:0:1 gear ratio. I fished it on 12-pound Berkeley trilene 100% fluorocarbon, covered a ton of water, and looked for bait on deeper flats and bombed that thing out there. Lake Oahe, tricky smallmouth lake, but thanks to these 2 things, Missile Jigs micro jig, Rapala DT6, I had a great finish. Mike Iaconelli talking about Lake Oahe for Tackle Warehouse.